You been doing a lot of birding, Alex?
Not so much now that it's summer. I've been mostly doing insect stuff, but I got out a lot this spring, and I'm really hoping to get 200 birds for Oklahoma this year, because last year I finished and I was at 199. So I really just want to get to that 200 mark this year, and I think I have like 10 to 15 more to go. So
I thought you were going to be like, and I'm at 230.
I wish. Yeah. I'm at 241 overall in Oklahoma, which is getting real close to my Wisconsin list of 250. So that'll be fun to see if I can catch up to Wisconsin in just a couple of years down here.
How many more years do you have now? Is it like 4 more?
Probably. Yeah, it depends on how long the PhD takes, but
Could be 4,
yeah.
could be 15, who knows?
I mean, I had fun down there, but it was probably because I don't live there.
I think the maximum is 8, so it shouldn't be that bad. But
it's nice that after a certain point, they're just like, yeah, you can't stay anymore.
Well, he could switch to a different like kind of PhD, couldn't you?
I could if I could do anything else.
Yeah. So it's really unlimited. He could be like the Oklahoma State Van Wilder.
Yeah, just switch to like a PhD in math or something halfway through.
Dance
that
theory.
goes.
All right, so
that would be rough.
Looks like we got some people joining in now. So we'd like to welcome Alex Harman. He's a grad student at Oklahoma State University, and we've had him in a couple of our Oklahoma videos. And it's always fun to have him join us on our adventures. So if you want to just give a little introduction as to like your research background, all that kind of stuff for everybody.
Sure. So as Derek said, I am Alex. I am currently just starting my PhD here at Oklahoma State University. I am studying grasshoppers. While I am a birder, I am an insect guy at heart. So I am studying grasshoppers and how different land use practices affect their diversity and abundance, such as prescribed burning and grazing and stuff like that. For my master's degree, I traveled all throughout Oklahoma and surveyed grasshoppers throughout the state. That was a lot of fun, just to see what was out there. The grasshoppers of Oklahoma have not been very well studied, so it was a lot of time spent in the field and driving all around the state, which is bigger than you'd think from looking at it on the map. Going all the way out to the far western end of the Panhandle takes a good while to get out there. But it's fun. I started collecting insects when I was 4 years old, so I've always kind of been into nature and stuff like that. I started birding when I was an undergrad in college, so probably about 18, 19 years old. And it's kind of taken off from there. So I do it pretty often throughout the winter and in the spring and fall, and whenever it's not 100 degrees outside down in Oklahoma, which is pretty much any time but the summer.
I feel like we should have put together a highlight reel for you. Like from the videos that you're in that we did, like Alex Harman, and it's like you just holding a tarantula and then like pointing to a collared lizard and
just squatting down with my camera in front of that great gray owl at Saxon Bog.
Yeah, I don't think you're that much in our Saxon for some reason, but you're definitely you're definitely highlighted in the ones that we did in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
One of my friends watched one that doesn't like spiders, and when it got to the part of the tarantula, she was like, "Oh!" And I was like, "Just wait, because it's when you start holding it." And she's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, and then in the next video, you have the big tarantula hawk wasp that Michael grabbed too. So between the two of those, yeah.
Well, great intro, Alex. We got some comments. People are saying my audio sounds quieter than your guys's. So if you guys can let me know if this sounds better, if I need to adjust further, that'd be great. Somebody asked if you've ever seen a grasshopper sparrow. I guess that kind of comes with the territory.
I thought they were going to say grasshopper. Like, hey, have you ever seen a grasshopper? Like, I don't know if they exist.
Well, I've seen a couple of grasshoppers in my time spent collecting them. But yeah, so for grasshopper sparrows, there's this really great place near where I grew up in Wisconsin, the Spring Green State Natural Area. I know you two have been there, and you've done videos on the place, and grasshopper sparrows are fairly common there. I know common and grasshopper sparrow don't go together super well, but pretty much you go there in the summer, you'll find grasshopper sparrows. And then I've also gotten a few down here on their wintering grounds in Oklahoma, or at least when they're passing through in late fall. So I have gotten grasshopper sparrows, but I've gotten a lot more grasshoppers.
Perfect.
Nice. So Justin Reed said he finally made one. Glad to be here. We're happy to have you, Justin. Nature Adventures with Jack is here. Says
I feel like Nature Adventures with Jack
said it is better.
is just asking for a collaboration.
Yeah, so if you want to elaborate a little bit more about like what's it like birding in Oklahoma versus Wisconsin type thing.
Yeah, so birding in Oklahoma, you definitely have a much nicer winter. You don't have to go out in the freezing cold and stand at some windy lakeshore staring at gulls for hours to find something. Although I've definitely done
How dare you say you don't like that?
Yeah, I've definitely done a little bit of that down here. We do get cold days every now and then. I'd say probably my favorite thing about winter in Oklahoma, bird-wise, is the sparrow diversity. Like, especially in late fall, like kind of November or early December, I can pretty easily go out to like a little park on campus and get probably 8 to 10, sometimes even a little higher than that, species of sparrows, including Locust sparrows are pretty common around here in the wintertime and pretty reliable at a few spots. Harris's sparrows are really common down here. They're pretty much all over the place in the winter.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, white-crowned, white-throated are usually in flocks with Harris's sparrows, so it's fun getting to see all three of those together. So that's pretty fun. In the summer, it's a lot less fun. It's obnoxiously hot and humid here pretty much all the time. But it's really fun heading out to the Panhandle where it's a bit drier and more desert-like. And there's a lot of like really unique kind of Rocky Mountain birds that just barely get into Oklahoma at the Panhandle at Black Mesa State Park. So you can get scaled quail, mountain bluebirds, Woodhouse's scrub jays, lots of cool Western things like that.
All right, we're getting a lot of questions here actually for you. So,
okay.
We got.
Why you sound surprised? You're like, we didn't expect you to be interesting.
That's not what I meant. I'm just saying, like, I can see them, but you guys can't. So I'm like, oh, geez, we gotta get through all these questions.
Oh, are they just like really popping off?
All right, so we'll start off at the top. So, Nature Adventures with Jack, make or break question: butterflies or moths?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been a butterfly guy for a really long time, but the diversity is just with the moths. So I kind of like butterflies because they're a lot easier to target specific species. You can learn their host plants. You can just go out and look for them. But there's something about sitting around a moth light and having just 200 species flying in and flying around you that you really can't beat either. So I'm going to say moths, but with the qualifier that certain groups of butterflies I place higher above moths. I really like my fritillaries and my checkers.
I feel like it's kind of a cop-out, man.
Yeah, you're trying to toe the line so that Jack doesn't leave the feed.
Okay, well, I will say moths, and we'll go with that for the time being.
All right, so Alex is a moth guy. That's what we got.
Yeah.
All right. Pizza Frenzyman says, good evening. Pete Pitchford says, hi from Stillwater.
Oh, Alex, you have a friend in the chat.
I got a local.
Yeah.
Aaron Hoobsmock says, Alex, Jeff Hoobsmock writing here, what's in store for the PhD? Any black-cap vireys in Oklahoma on your list?
Ooh, story about that one.
Yeah, so the first time I went after black-cap vireo, I was grasshopper sampling with a friend, and we just stopped by this one little river site near the Wichita Mountains, jumped out, caught some grasshoppers, and as we're walking back to the car, I hear a vireo, give my binoculars on it, female black-cap. Super easy, right off the bat. Then these guys come down to Oklahoma, and we get to that exact same spot, and we wander around for probably a good 45 minutes or so before we finally get on a black-capped vireo. Even then, it's a female in dense brush. We even weren't really sure what it was when we got looks at it, but eventually...
I think we got the picture of like the eye through the bushes.
And then we used like process of elimination to be like, well, there's no blue-headeds this time of year, so got to be black-capped. But then we did some more hiking. We got some really good views of a couple of pairs of them just kind of going around the Wichita Mountains. So and those are the only 2 times I've seen them to date. So I do have black-capped vireos, not many, and I'd like to get some good pictures myself at some point.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we had a black cap vireo in Louisiana this year, and it was like
Oh,
everyone was freaking out about it. And my friend and I were on a trip to Texas, and so we stopped at that place on the way, and we had took a wrong turn, and it like cost us 30 minutes of daylight. And I'm pretty sure if we had it, we would have seen it, but we ended up not because it just got too dark and there were mosquitoes everywhere. But it was crazy to actually have one come down to Louisiana.
yeah, that's wild. They're rare enough. I'm guessing that they don't vagrant very often.
No, I want to say that was the first state record. I'm not 100% sure though, but it
Cool.
was a good bird, needless to say.
If you guys want to see more of that experience Alex was talking about, though, it's in our Wichita Mountains video, which
Yeah,
Alex, I still
I'll
go
throw it in
back
the
and
chat.
watch those videos just to like remember it because it was such a fun trip, which for you, it probably wasn't different at all just because you're like, yeah, I went to a bunch of places I've been to before. But to me, it was like, this is so cool. Oklahoma has cool landscapes.
No, that was really cool. That was super fun for me too. Actually going out in the field without needing to sample grasshoppers the whole time and with a lot of other folks. That was a really fun trip. And like I said, I still haven't seen black-cap vireo since then. I've never seen tarantulas in the numbers that we had on the way out to the Wichita Mountains that trip. Like, that was a great trip all around.
Yeah, the buffalo that we had to park in an opposite parking lot because there was a huge bison that was going to the place that we wanted to park at. And we were like, why don't we just go somewhere else until it leaves?
Yeah, that was very intimidating, just seeing what I remember being in the car and being like, I'm glad I'm in the car to see this.
Didn't he eat like an entire tree? Like there was a tree there and he just consumed like the whole tree in one bite.
Yeah, I'm glad we went the other way down the trail to start off that trip.
Yeah, and remember we found all those white-eyed vireos too. So we just heard all this vireo chatter and we were like, what is it? Get on it. Find out what it is. And it was white-eyed vireos.
Well, that was cool seeing so many white eyes there because those are rare up in Wisconsin. And now,
yeah, it was cool. You know, I still didn't really get very many good pictures or videos of those just because they were so skittery.
All right, we got Chloe B says she can hear me now, still lower than you guys. I'll try to be a little closer to the mic. Claire Galloway, maybe you just need to project. Says, yay, Badgerland birding. Am I not projecting? Is this not projecting enough for you, Ryan?
I don't know. You're a little quiet.
Okay.
Try screaming. You're like, we're trying to have a discussion.
Doing a sound check. All right. Nature Adventures with Jack says, okay, good. Moths are the best. Save yourself. So we got another one for Team Moth over there.
Overall, though, definitely Team Beetle. Moths, they got nothing on beetles.
You're really digging into the minutia today.
Alex, here's a question. What type of people are weirder, insect people or bird people?
Oh, I'd say insect people. Like, I like my insect people, don't get me wrong, but bird people, at least there's kind of like a standard type of bird person. Insect people are all over the place.
I feel like you really, like, birding opens the gateway to all this other stuff because now, like, our friends Bill and Rob are constantly posting stuff in our group chat that was originally for birds about, like, beetles, moths, and, and snakes. I
try and help out when I can, but you get to some of those little moths and I don't even know what I'm doing a lot of the time.
We're always, whenever we find anything, we're like, Alex, what is it? And you almost always have an answer. So.
Yeah. I try to help out where I can.
Right,
yeah, well, appreciated.
Richard says we live in Stillwater, but we'll be in Hayward, Wisconsin next week. What should we be looking for up there? I think that's one for you, Rye.
Yeah, so it depends what type of bird you're looking for right now. Obviously, we have a lot of the breeding birds, and we don't have a lot of the migrants because they're already come through and are breeding in the boreal forest right now. But my top place for you to go would probably be Horicon Marsh because they've had an ibis that's been there recently. So that's probably one of the spots that would be good to look. Let me know what kind of birds you're looking for, and I can be a little bit more specific on some places you might want to go. Oh, you also might want to hit spring green because, like Alex said, spring green has the grasshopper sparrows and lark sparrows and occasionally blue grosbeaks. That would probably be like the top place to go would be there in Horicon right now. Is the chat blowing up, Derek?
I was trying to check the audio real quick. That was good stuff. Rebecca Clark says, yo. And then Aaron Husmak said, when you're next in Wisconsin, you must tour Boble Hall at UWP with me. Glad you're well. In parentheses, former professor here.
Yeah, definitely I'm looking forward to getting back to Plathville at some point and looking around Babel Hall to see how the renovation went.
And then Rebecca Clark says, please come to South Texas. I actually was in South Texas, so I'll be doing some videos on that stuff. And then
Wait, you got to leverage this more. What's she going to get us for birds if we go to South Texas?
I don't know if she's like inviting us there or if she's just.
That sounds like an invite. She said, please come to South Texas.
I'd take you guys up on that. I'd go with you to South Texas.
That sounds great. Alex, we were talking about, because Derek, comes back and forth from Louisiana quite often. Well, not quite often, occasionally. We were talking about swinging up there, like flying down and then together swinging up by you.
Yeah.
You could just go meet us down in South Texas and then swing back up, go to Black Mesa, and then we can head out.
A South Texas Black Mesa trip, that would be so epic.
I think that we have to do it.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
I think that we should do it when we get 5,000 subscribers.
Okay, as long as that's sometime in the summer and I'm free.
Maybe we should do it this summer or next summer and then just say it's for 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah, just save the video. Don't tell anyone about it and then just post it when you get to 5,000.
Yeah, and then the whole time in the video, we're just like, and this is for the 5,000 we got.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I switched microphone inputs. They're still saying it's quiet. Are we good now? I think this should be working better. Does it sound different to you guys?
It sounds pretty much the same to me. I didn't have an issue hearing you before.
Okay. All right. Nature with Gabe said, I like turtles.
Nice.
Gabe's
I like turtles.
herp guy, so yeah, we're all turtle fans.
So I actually have a great story, Alex, that you might appreciate. So the other day I was fishing and I was using a huge buzzbait. So like the hook was like the size of my finger. I cast out, and as I'm casting, I see a turtle head pop up, and the bait lands right on top of the turtle. And I start reeling it in, and I'm like, this feels heavier than normal. So I'm pulling it in. There's a turtle attached to it. I'm like, okay, this thing probably got hooked like an arm or something. I'm going to have to deal with taking this out, and it's not going to be easy. And I look, and it looks like the hook is like stuck right here, and it looks like it's super deep. Yeah. So I'm like, this is not good at all. And I'm worried that I'm going to have to like take this to Wildlife in Need. And I kind of jiggle the hook around, and it just comes right out. And it turns out it landed on top of the turtle's neck, and the turtle sucked into its shell, and it was just holding it there with the suction from the shell.
Nice.
All right, we got some more questions for you. Let's see what we got. Nature Adventures Jack says, yeah, beetles are great. Also, I got many today to pin. I'm sure you have a lot of beetle pinning stories, Alex. You have quite the collection.
You said you were going to send me a tarantula hawk pinned.
Oh, yeah. You got to keep reminding me about that. I got some. I can send you one.
That was probably the most memorable insight that we saw, because Michael's just like holding on to it, and he's like, this thing hurts more than almost anything else in the world. He's just holding on to it.
Yep. Yeah, I just got back from a Black Mesa trip last weekend. So, or 2 weekends ago at this point. Yeah. But anyway, I caught probably a couple hundred tiger beetles on that trip, in addition to all the grasshoppers and everything. So I've been spending a lot of time the past week pinning and labeling beetles.
What's like the beetle that you're still looking for the most to add to your collection?
Well, in Oklahoma, every year I make a whole list of things like targets and rank them and see what I want to get for the year. And there's one, it's the most boring looking tiger beetle that might be found in the state. But there's a little brown tiger beetle that lives in like southeast United States. And it should be found in Oklahoma by all accounts. Its habitat is in Oklahoma. It's been collected within like 20 miles of the Oklahoma border in Arkansas, but it has not been recorded in Oklahoma yet. So one of my big goals this year was to try and find those for the state. And we're getting a little late in their season now, and I haven't found one yet, but maybe this weekend when I go out to eastern Oklahoma, we'll see what I can do.
And what bird is on your list that you want to see next?
Least tern. They're definitely around Oklahoma. They get seen in Stillwater periodically when they're passing through on the lakes and whatnot, but I still haven't got one.
I can get you least tern down here if you want to come get one.
Yeah, I was going to say, we swing down to Louisiana.
Yep.
I could like pick you up. We could go to Louisiana. Then we could swing to South Texas. Then we could swing back up to Oklahoma.
That works for me.
All right, I'm trying without the mic now, so we're gonna see if that sounds any better.
Are people
So let me
still
know in
saying
the
it's
chat.
quiet?
People are still saying it's quiet. I know it sounds good to you guys, so I don't know.
I wonder if it's
Yeah,
just
I've been
something with how
able-
Zoom works.
Yeah, I've been able to hear you fine the whole time.
Okay.
So.
Well, continuing on. Pete says insect people for sure. Just watch Silence of the Lambs.
Oh no.
Justin Reed says he has to make his way to HorrorCon. Agreed. People saying love HorrorCon.
I'm going there tomorrow, actually, so I can make a little blog post about what I find.
Quinn said he was happy to get excellent spruce grouse views last weekend. Have all of you seen the spruce grouse?
I have not seen a spruce grouse.
Ryan and I have with Bill and Rob in the Boreal.
I think it was just Bill.
Okay, people are saying the audio is better now, so that's good. That was just Bill? Me and you with Bill?
I thought so, yeah, because that's when he had a cold and he drank like an entire bottle of
Oh,
cough syrup.
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I remember his quote. He's like, I know I had a great day birding.
No,
but
it's
it
I
really...
was told. I was
yeah.
told I had a great day birding, but I don't remember any of it.
All right. Alex, have you ever seen an eared grebe? Got one as a lifer today. Odd to have it in New Hampshire.
Nice. Well, congrats on the lifer. I've gotten a few eared grebes. They're fairly common in Oklahoma in the wintertime. So I got a bunch of them last winter. But then I also have gotten one or two in Wisconsin along the Mississippi River, kind of near Platteville, where I went to college. So yeah, they're pretty cool.
They're way more plentiful out west for sure.
Yeah, I like to see just about any sort of grebe. So I always get excited in the winter when they all come down and stay in Oklahoma.
Rebecca Clark says, what are some birds you don't see in Wisconsin?
That I get in
yeah.
Oklahoma? Well, on the walk from the road to my apartment, I had scissor-tailed flycatchers and western kingbirds. So those are, as you two know, both common birds virtually everywhere around Stillwater. So we're kind of spoiled with those. We also have gray-tailed grackles as your typical Walmart parking lot bird, and we have fish crows all over town, although they've been a little less common the past month. I think they're moving out or they're just busy with their babies or something at the moment. I haven't been hearing quite as many of them. For more exciting stuff, we have painted buntings, pretty commonly around town. Black-capped vireos, as someone said. Snowy plovers at the Great Salt Plains National Wildlife Refuge. So there's a pretty good variety of both rare and common birds that you don't really get often in Wisconsin.
I remember when we first got to Oklahoma, like everything that we saw when our drive, like as soon as we crossed the state line was new. So it was like a bunch of cattle egrets that we didn't see the whole time, and all of a sudden there's a flock of like 600 of them on an island, and then we see a box turtle, and then we see a bunch of scissor-tail flycatchers, and we're just like, what is this place?
Yeah, once you get down to Oklahoma, just about every single fence along the highway has scissor-tailed flycatchers on it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I can't overemphasize enough how much fun I had in Oklahoma. It was so shocking to me because no one ever says go travel to Oklahoma.
Yeah, we're definitely not the most popular state, but definitely lots of good nature stuff out here.
So Caden said, try to get out to get seaside and salt marsh sparrow before they go extinct. We have seaside sparrows down here. That's always a cool one to see. Cole Squire said, hey, Alex, I let a bee loose in my room in memory of you. Glad you're thriving, brother. Is there an inside joke there?
Yeah, so he and I were roommates together sophomore year of college, and I had collected some sort of weird little bumblebee, and I thought it was dead, so I had it in a vial, and I opened the vial so that it wouldn't get moldy, as insects do if you keep them in an enclosed vial. Well, it turns out the bee was not dead, and promptly led to us searching the room frantically trying to find the bee, which eventually was found on Cole's pillow. And in my attempt to recapture it, I disturbed it enough that it started flying around and got inside our dorm light that we had to dismantle to get the bee out of it. So that is the bee in the dorm room story. But we got it, so that's what matters.
Joe Dirt, username Joe Dirt. legit. That's what it is. Says, do you know if the Pacific loon is going to stay all summer or is it going to leave?
I think the Pacific loon's gone already. I haven't seen any reports of it, so I assume it's taken off. It's very rare to have one that's even inland at all. Usually they're on Lake Michigan or Lake Superior and just way far out. Like you need a scope to even get a glimpse, and we were able to see it with a digital camera 60 times zoom, so it was a very rare and strange occurrence.
People are saying the sound's better now. Rebecca says go to Laguna Atacasa NWR. I'm assuming that's a Texas place.
Yep, yeah, that's Texas.
And then Pete says painted bunnings here in Stillwater. Emerson Harman says, where has been your single favorite place to bird?
I'm going to assume we're talking about in Oklahoma.
Give us one of Wisconsin, one of Oklahoma.
Okay. In Wisconsin, it would be Memorial Park and at UW-Platteville. It's not a spectacular birding place by any means, but it's where I grew up as a birder. That's where I birded my entire college career right after I started. So I got dozens, probably 70 to 80 lifers there, just all the different warblers that passed through and everything. I found a few pretty decent birds there too. We had some flyover black-necked stilts one time, white-eyed vireo, which is a pretty good bird for Wisconsin. Down in Oklahoma, I'd say the Black Mesa area. So Black Mesa State Park and surrounding area, just all the weird, unexpected stuff that kind of turns up there. They had tons of evening grosbeaks during this eruption that happened last winter. And I had a unexpected mountain chickadee there in the fall. I had
those are so cool.
Yeah. Red-naped sapsucker, all sorts of cool mountain stuff just kind of erupts down into that area pretty regularly. So I would love to spend more time out there, but 6.5 hours away, I don't get up there very often.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. Yeah, I saw a lot of that stuff in the high altitude parts of South Dakota.
Yeah, out in the Black Hills there. And it's a pretty cool area too.
Yeah, definitely. That is pretty cool.
Caden says, just got my first scissor-tailed flycatchers a few weeks ago in Missouri. That's awesome. Love those birds. Quinn says, have you ever birded in the Northeast?
I have not personally. I don't know about you two, but I haven't really been to the Northeast a whole lot. I think as far north and east I've gotten is like driving through West Virginia or Ohio. So I haven't gotten out there, but my sibling actually goes to school in New Jersey. So hoping to visit during their graduation and hit that Cape May trip during like peak migration or something. So
all right, we swing by Cape May.
Okay.
We go down to Louisiana, out to South Texas, up to Black Mesa.
You basically just want to do a United States trip is what you're telling me.
I was going to say, if we're going out to the East Coast, we might as well swing by like Everglades or something on the way.
That's a great idea. Too. I mean, we might as well go out to the West Coast if we're going that way.
Yeah,
I've actually birded Boston a little bit, like a very little amount. I was out to the Five Sisters, which are like just these 5 rock piles that are out in the Atlantic Ocean, and saw the oyster catchers, and there's blackback gulls everywhere, which I was surprised by, and saw some other, piping plovers, semi-palmated plovers, different sandpipers, but I haven't extensively birded the East Coast other than the Southeast.
All right, well, we got 10 minutes left on this Zoom, so we can decide if we want to continue, because we don't have the pro version of Zoom, so with 3 people, it tries to limit you to 40 minutes. So we'll see how many questions we can get through. Caden says Wisconsin had an Arctic loon in Bayfield in early June. That's correct. I think Rob went out to go see that. I think
Rob saw it.
Yeah, Rob saw it. Pete says next time in Stillwater, let's get a good sized group out looking for birds. Tahira Hansen says, I'm on Madeline Island for the summer. What birds are here this time of year? Is Madeline Island in Oklahoma? Or is that... Do you guys know where that is?
I don't know where that is.
I don't know, but I can look it up real quick if you want.
You can look that up. Carrie Pratt says, if they were attacking you, how many turkey vultures do you think you could successfully fight off? I'm really interested in this question too, actually.
That's kind of a good question.
Yeah, I like that one. Are they actively like trying to projectile vomit on me, or are they just like coming at me with their beak? Because I feel like they could like blind you with the projectile vomit. and then you'd be at a big disadvantage.
Like a Dilophosaurus in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to optimistically say 4. I feel like 4
I think more than 4. I was going to say like 20.
Damn, you are very confident in your vulture fighting abilities.
I mean,
it's almost like it's happened before. And she, like,
I mean, last time it was 16, and that wasn't too hard, so.
Quinn says, I went to New Jersey, saw the white-faced storm petrel and bridal tern. Those are awesome birds.
That's really cool.
Justin Reed says, nothing wrong with the United States birding trip. I'm in. Nature Adventures with Jack. No, you have to do Cape May, Forsyth, Great Swamp, Sandy Hook, then walk if in New Jersey. Aaron Hoobsmock says, drive time from Stillwater to Portal, Arizona is 13 hours. Do the Chirahuas while you're down there. Arizona's cool.
The Chiricahua Mountains are great. I've been insect collecting there, but that was in my pre-birder days.
You could spend weeks in Arizona, I'm sure, and still not see everything.
Pete said Madeline Island's up in Bayfield by Lake Superior.
Oh, yeah, I haven't been up there.
We don't get up to Bayfield a ton.
No, I've only went up there for Jaegerfest, and I think, like, Rob and I swung out there once for something or other. Haven't birded it extensively, though. I think, Derek, we should do, when we get, like, some goal, we should do the Kalima Warbler.
That'd be fun.
That could be part of that South Texas trip. Although that's more like West Texas, isn't it?
I would have to research when you have to go up there and like what you have to do for it. I know it's like quite the haul to get up there. It might be one of those things too that's even harder than it sounds, because some of that stuff they're like, yeah, you have to do a little hike to get there, and it turns out you have to go like on a 10 to 15 mile hike up a waterfall into a cave.
Yeah.
Quinn says, thanks for doing a pelagic trip off of Cape May. Rebecca Clark says, I saw a willet once at Boca Chica Beach. I am a big fan of willets. Emerson Harman says, would you rather fight off 4 turkey vultures or 50 hummingbirds actively attacking you?
I'm going to say the 4 turkey vultures. I feel like all the little beaks stabbing into you, and hummingbirds are so aggressive, you wouldn't stand a chance against them.
I think they'd go for the eyes.
If they got you in the eyes, you're in trouble. Or like one beak to the carotid artery.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
King Joffrey said, I've seen tons of birds jeering and attacking redtails, but does any bird have the cojones to try and scare a Cooper's hawk? I've never seen it.
That's a good question. I think the difference with Cooper's hawks too is they're so good at flying through the woods that I think they can easily lose things chasing them in forests, where red-tailed hawks kind of just soar and have a much harder time. They're not as maneuverable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Caden says, I went to Washington and the Puget Sound, and the rarest bird I found was a chipping sparrow, which are fairly rare there. I don't know a ton about the birds of Washington. And Rebecca Clark says deep South Texas, so more votes for South Texas.
Deep South Texas, as in Mexico.
That's pretty deep in South Texas.
I mean, honestly, why limit the trip to the U.S.? Take it all the way down, get some trogons and pink warblers.
Do a world trip at that point.
We should just go to Costa Rica.
I mean,
all right. Well, if we want to close in the 4 minutes we have for this meeting, if you guys have any final questions for Alex, let us know. You can also put them in the comments, and we can do them that way, like the comments of the video or in the chat. Either way is good. Emerson says, any big travel plans coming up for birds and or insects this year?
Well, speaking of Costa Rica, we have a family trip going down to Costa Rica in December, January. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully can hit a few targets I didn't get last time down there. I'd really love to get a sun grebe. I think sun grebe is probably near the top of my list there. Other than that, I'll be sticking around Oklahoma, so hopefully I can do a bit of good birding during fall migration, pick up some new shorebirds or something to get me up to 200, and yeah, just looking forward to seeing what's out there.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, a Costa Rica trip. Have you ever been out there before?
Yeah, so I did a little short-term study abroad winter trip to Costa Rica a couple years ago, and I saw 200 50 some bird species and got a whole bunch of lifers. Most exciting one was the resplendent quetzal, which is probably my favorite bird. But yeah, it was a great trip. I would highly recommend.
I think Costa Rica, like one of the bird meccas to go to.
Yeah, it's super popular, easy to access, lots of like tourist infrastructure, so lots of nature lodges to stay at. And it's really easy to get between like the different ecoregion type things. Like you can go from high elevation to cloud forest to like tropical dry forest right along the ocean in probably a 3-4 hour drive.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We got Quinn says, I was dive bombed by Arctic terns when birding for puffins. Arctic terns are the most scary bird and they attack polar bears. How do you guys feel about that statement?
I feel like blue jays might be one of the scariest birds too.
I definitely will vouch for Arctic terns, though. I did a little trip up to Churchill, Manitoba, and one of the guys I was with did a little research project on like measuring the temperature in bird nests. So we had to actually like get right next to Arctic tern nests, and they were definitely aggressive. I got some good pictures of them dive bombing this guy's hat, so they are not to be messed with.
I thought you were gonna say I got some good scars.
No, I was looking for other stuff, so I kept my distance. But I was the cameraman for that.
Oh, gotcha. Convenient.
Yeah.
We got more confirmation for Madeline Island being in Lake Superior. Jack said a U.S. trip would be really cool. Birder's Paradise said I want to go to Costa Rica. So you'll have to let us know all the cool stuff you see down there.
Maybe we should do a 100,000 subscriber Costa Rica trip.
I'll just make a video for the entire trip.
Just 1 million subscriber trip across the United States and Costa Rica.
You know, Alex, if you want to write a guest blog post about your trip to Costa Rica, we'd be happy to publish it on the blog for people to check out.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
That way you can, like, during the evening, can slave away over your journal, writing about.
Yeah. No, evenings are when you walk around and get bugs off of the lights on the buildings.
Ah, yes. How dare I forget.
There is no time for sleep on a trip to Costa Rica.
Well, I feel like the journal would be like, I bent down to pick up a tiger beetle, looked up, and there was 1,000 hummingbirds.
Yeah, and then they started attacking me.
And then right at the face.
All right, so this one's going to kick us out, but I emailed you a meeting, or a new Zoom meeting link, so we can jump on that one and keep going, because I feel like we have a lot of good stuff to talk about here. So does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Okay. Let's maybe just end this one, and then we'll hop in the new one. So everybody who's watching, hang tight. We'll be back in a sec. Sound good?
Yep.
See how long it takes them to join in. Thanks everybody for joining. We really appreciate you guys tuning in.
Are we live?
We sure are.
Nice. We beat Alex.
I can't see you though.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
That seamless transition.
I was about to say disparaging things about Alex until I heard we weren't live.
He just got in, so he's coming. We're in a different order now, though.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
It's like
I'm in the same place.
It is like the Brady Bunch. It's the birding bunch.
I think that's a podcast, actually. I think there's a podcast called, like, The Birdie Bunch or something.
Why does it seem like there's so many bird podcasts?
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen a lot when I'm looking around.
Podcasts are just, like, the new thing, I think.
Derek, how did your podcast go with My Favorite Birder?
It was good. It was a lot of fun. We'd like to have one where you're in there with us, too. So we talked about scheduling that.
When's it getting posted?
I'm not sure yet. She said she'd send me the audio for me to check out. I guess audio and video, and then when I give the okay, then I don't know when a release date is planned, but I'm excited about that one. Okay, chat. Here we got Barbara Cole says, I love resplendent quetzals. How do you say that? Do you guys know?
I just say Quetzals, but I don't know if that's right.
I don't know. Sure. She
Spell
says
it
they're gorgeous.
pronounce it in the most Americanized way possible.
I'd say like Quetzal, like pretzel.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That might be how it's pronounced. I just don't know. Birding is weird because it's one of those things where you don't always hear it out loud, and you've like seen it in writing so often that sometimes you just don't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's insects too. Like I came down to Oklahoma State, and then people like say scientific names, and I never had other insect people to really talk to before. So I could type them 1,000 times perfectly, but actually trying to say them out loud sometimes can be a bit tricky.
And I feel like with that, there's probably few experts who actually know the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. So what I learned is if you just say it confidently, people will generally just go with what you say.
I remember one of them for me was kittiwake. I hadn't heard out loud, and I tried pronouncing it, and someone looked at me like, "What's the matter with you?"
What'd you say it like?
I don't remember, but it wasn't right apparently. And then there's the classic plover versus plover debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rebecca
Alex,
Clark
are you on
says,
Team Plover or Team Plover?
Oh, I'm Team Plover.
I'm
That's
Team
good,
Plover
good.
too.
The town is Plover, so the bird's got to be Plover, right?
Right.
Rebecca, well, did you see that Rob posted where they
Yeah.
spelled it wrong in the water tower? They spelled it PLV.
Yeah, sorry, the town is actually Plover or something like that. I don't know how they messed
I feel
it
like
up.
there's no definitive answer though, because you have words in the English language that have the same order of words yet are pronounced different. Like there's a lover and then there's clover. So it just, who knows?
Yeah, whichever one you want.
All right, so got some chat here. Rebecca Clark says, I saw a green jay once. Green jays are gorgeous. I really love those. Justin Reed says, can you share the pictures? Are you talking about like on the screen for the Zoom or other pictures of stuff? So just let us know in the chat. Ethan Ring says, what is a bird that has eluded you? For me, it's the American bittern.
Wait, the American bittern?
Yeah.
You've heard bitterns.
No, Ethan Ring in the chat says.
Oh, I thought you were saying that, Derek. I thought you were like,
you're like,
what's a
I've
bird that
seen one
eluded
with you.
Yeah, I was like, we've seen one. It walked in front of our car, liar.
Okay. For me, I don't really have a big one right now. For the longest time, it was ladder-backed woodpecker. They're found at the Wichita Mountains. They're found at Black Mesa. Up until last weekend, I had been to Black Mesa 3 times and the Wichita Mountains 4 or 5 times without getting a ladder-backed woodpecker. And they're not rare there. They're common on eBird reports. I chased down every woodpecker I heard, and they just never were ladderbacks. But finally, last weekend, I got a ladder-backed woodpecker. So I'm still happy on that. I have not had time to make a new nemesis bird, but that one was my top one for a while.
What was the one that we were looking for that's like the plainest bird ever that we didn't find? The sparrow?
Cassin sparrow.
Yeah, did you find
the Cassin sparrow?
Yeah, they're pretty common out at Black Mesa. So I have seen them, and more importantly, I have heard them. So I actually knew they were Cassin sparrow and not an immature anything else that looks like a Cassin sparrow. No hate to the Cassin sparrows, but they are not the flashiest bird in the world.
I still don't think they exist. I think they're just an amalgamation of other birds that people are like, Cassins.
Yeah.
Caden says, would be a great plot to a movie for a birder to fight off an invasion of the evil Arctic terns.
I think there should be some more birding movies. Birding is underrepresented in movies and TV shows.
Quinn says, American bittern is a cool bird. My favorite bittern is lease. I actually had an experience with a lease bittern. I was out in it's called a pirogue, like a Cajun canoe. And it's the place where we are at for our research. It's a restoration site, is great for lease bitterns. And of course, I didn't bring my camera this time. And I was probably like 2 feet away from one. And it was catching fish. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I didn't have my camera. So I took a selfie with it. And I'm like, that's kind of cool, but it's not the close-up that I want. Jack said, yeah, the lives are fun. Tom Knowles says, I started using BirdNet earlier this year and was pretty impressed. Merlin just added sound recognition. Do you guys have any views or insights into these sound recognition apps? I've used them a little bit, and they seem decent. We'd love to do like a test sometime of all of them.
I know Rob uses them fairly regularly, and one time I'm pretty sure it was dead on, and it was like the perfect situation for it. There was a warbler that was somewhere in the tops of these leafed out trees, and he recorded it, and it was like, oh, says Nashville. And I was like, well, that makes sense, and it just made this a lot easier. But then he just posted in our bird group recently the thing where he was trying to take a recording of a northern harrier, and he said there was an airplane in the background, and it said some ridiculous results. I don't even remember what it was.
So it's probably the same where you really need a clear audio for it to be.
I'm assuming, yeah.
For me, I just use Rob as my bird ID call app. So I just stick it in our group chat.
It's so much easier birding with Rob because you're just like, Rob, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's this. And you're like, but what about that? And he's like, that's this. And I'm like, what about that? And he's like, that's the first one again.
Yeah.
Quinn said, if blue jays, gulls, and terns banded together, they would be a huge threat. I think if any birds banded together, they'd be a huge threat.
I think if just ostriches or cassowaries decided to go a little bit rogue, we'd have problems.
Yeah.
A birder's paradise said pretzel the quetzal. Jack said my insect friends hate when I say the scientific names because they get confused. You probably have that issue.
Yeah, every now and then someone will say something and I'll be like, what is that? Say it a little slower. And then they say it slower and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, but we just pronounce it totally different. So, and then either I keep saying it and then they usually switch to how I'm saying it, or they keep saying it and I switch how I say it. So it all just kind of changes.
Someone said, or prothonotary warbler. I don't know what that's in reference to.
I think some people say prothonotary versus prothonotary.
I feel like you could pronounce it in a variety of different ways.
Steven Shepard said Ryan has a white hand on his face. That's because the cursor on my screen was on you. I guess I could mess with any one of you I want having screen share on my computer. Carrie said if you could bring back any extinct bird, which would you choose?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah,
probably the Sasquatch.
Whole lot of responsibility there.
Yeah. Well, assuming that we bring it back to the point that it can self-sustain, the habitat's there for it. It's not like we bring it back and then we release it and it just dies right away. I'd really like to bring back like one of those 10-foot tall like elephant birds, because those existed at the same time as humans. People just got to Madagascar and were like, hey, these taste good, and then wiped them out.
Oh, are you talking about the moa?
Just something.
No, I think there was something
moa
different.
is New Zealand, and then elephant birds are like the same thing, but in Madagascar.
Oh, okay.
Either one of those would be super cool. As much as like there's the classic like ivory-billed woodpecker or...
Hey, that still exists.
Yeah, we don't know, man.
Okay, Cornell Lab of Ornithology.
What if you were like, I wish for the ivory-billed woodpecker to return, and then nothing happened because there was still like 2 of them out there, so it wasn't extinct?
That would be even worse, because then they'd just go extinct within like the next...
Yeah, you're like, well, I wasted that wish.
So, and you wasted it.
I think I would go with the great auk.
Oh, yeah, having weird penguin-like alcids in the Northeast, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
All right, so we're getting some comments in the chat about... Quinn said I'd bring back passenger pigeon. Rebecca Clark said Carolina parakeet. I want you guys to like comment, put in the like actual comment to the videos what extinct bird you would bring back if you could.
My trepidation with the passenger pigeon is how numerous they were. I feel like that would completely alter the landscape of birds right now with like a ton of pigeon-like birds, even more than we have now.
Yeah, that would be wild just to bring back like billions of passenger pigeons, because it was insane how common they were. Like, and the flocks that they formed were like locust swarms.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't sound real because people say they'd be overhead for like hours.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom that.
It's crazy that that was actually wiped out, that you can take that many birds and then they can go extinct.
Well, there's an insect that's almost just like that. The Rocky
mosquito?
No, they're still around. The Rocky Mountain locust actually... North America had a species of locust that caused huge devastation, and the biggest swarm ever recorded was estimated to be one locust swarm about the size of California.
Whoa.
And they bred in the Rocky Mountains, and then they would spread eastward into the Great Plains every year. And like the passenger pigeon, they just got to some population threshold and they just crashed. And we don't really know why. Theories on to how that happened, but it's another one of those things with a super numerous species that is now extinct.
Were scientists and like farmers kind of happy about that one? So one day they like looked over the plains and like, that locust is extinct, and then the dude next to him just like, yeah, and like gave him a high five.
I'm sure the farmers were definitely happy about that. Scientists, I don't think, really realized what was happening until they were virtually gone, because typically with insects, you have a pretty wide record of them going back in insect collections and whatnot. But with these locusts, people never really collected them just because they were so numerous. People were like, I'm not going to waste my time pinning one of those. There are billions of them everywhere. So there really aren't even that many historical specimens for us to look back on. They just never bothered to collect them.
That's crazy.
Is there a high turnover of insects going extinct? Like, does that happen a lot?
Probably happens a lot more than we realize it, because a lot of the things that would be going extinct would be like really range limited things that probably aren't even described yet. But yeah, I mean, I would guess that the proportion of insects going extinct probably is similar to that of like mammals, birds, vertebrates in general. But because there's so many more insect species, I would assume the number that have gone extinct is much higher.
How do you feel about the fact that the insect world is just horrifying? Like you have parasites and like mind control spores and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh, I love it. That's the best part.
You have like carnivorous caterpillars. It's just like the Wild West of
all the weird stuff that insects do. That's what makes them so cool. Like tiger beetles are one of my favorite groups, and their larvae dig burrows into the ground and then just sit at the top of them with just their head flat with the surface. It's pretty much like a manhole cover with giant teeth on it. And then as soon as a little ant comes by, it launches itself out of its burrow, grabs it, drags it back down, and eats it.
Sounds like Tremors.
These are things that sci-fi monsters are based on, and they're just in your backyard, which is super cool.
Isn't the tiger beetle too that can travel so fast that it goes blind and then has to stop?
A lot of them do. So tiger beetles are one of the fastest running insects, and yeah, when they run chasing their prey, they'll run and then stop and run and stop because they move so fast that their eyes can't process what they're seeing. So they essentially go blind while they're running.
Yeah.
I'm really curious how scientists figured that out. That sounds.
And did they test it themselves?
Yeah, there's definitely some study where I think they put things in front of tiger beetles and like saw how they detected it or whatnot. I have not read the details of it, so I won't conjecture any farther about it. But
we have a ton of people in the chat talking about birds that they think may or that they want to have be not extinct.
You unleashed Pandora's box.
Jack said my friends pronounce parula and parul like EH versus AH at the
I've heard people say parula too.
Yeah, I don't like that one, but
Michael says the federal government had ransoms for the locusts, would pay so much money per pound of them. Do you know anything about that? Check out?
Yeah, there were all sorts of cool ways of getting rid of the locusts. Like they'd pay per the pound. People actually made like these because they didn't have like vehicles back then, but they made like ox-pulled flamethrowers that would like cover the ground with like gas and light it on fire just to kill the locust eggs. Like people were very creative in the ways they came up with to kill these locusts. And eventually it worked, probably. What's generally thought is actually the locusts probably bred in like really fertile river valleys. And those would have been the first places that humans settled as well to farm. So they plowed up the valleys, that exposed the locust eggs, and then that killed off most of them, is the general leading theory. But yeah,
that's crazy.
People got really creative with that.
Little Green Hair in 91. That's a great username. Said, have you ever had a dangerous encounter with any insect or gotten stung?
Well, I am deathly allergic to paper wasps, so I have dangerous encounters with insects pretty much every time I step outside my apartment. But yeah, I've gotten stung by all sorts of things over the years. I've gotten bit by more beetles than I can probably count. It comes with being an entomologist.
Were there any really painful ones?
I'll still say that paper wasp stings are probably in my top 3. I've also gotten hit by a couple bumblebees in really weird places. Once I was shoving a collapsible net behind my backpack, and one got me on the top of the thumb, and that swelled up and hurt quite a bit. And last year when I was out in the field, I must have gotten too close to a bumblebee nest, and one got me right on the nose, and that one hurt pretty bad too. Bumblebee and paper wasp would probably be my top 2. I haven't gotten stung by anything real exciting like a tarantula hawk wasp.
I was just about to say, has anybody you know been tarantula hawked?
My professor actually has. He finds great joy in stinging himself with different insects. So if students do well enough on an exam, he'll have me like catch a cicada killer, bring it in, and he'll sting himself with that. So I think he's taken tarantula hawk wasps. I know down in Brazil, he's taken a bullet ant, which is supposed to be the most painful sting of all insects.
So for people that don't know, why don't you tell them about the Schmidt pain index?
Yep. So there's a professor. His last name is Schmidt, and he has made it his duty to go around the world and sting himself with as many insects as possible. And he ranks them at 0 through 4. So 0 is essentially you don't even feel it, a little sweaty or something. 4 is the bullet ant. Sometimes the tarantula hawk wasp is put at a 4. Sometimes it's at a 3.9. It's up there too. And he just has a whole ranking system based on how much the stings hurt. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And entomologists will sometimes have fun like trying out the stings on themselves. Like I said, entomologists are kind of a weird bunch. One thing that they did at a conference I went to, it was in Southeast Arizona, and they would have the tarantula hawk wasp challenge, because wasps, like bees and ants, only the females can sting. So if you're good enough, you can identify the males on a flower, walk up to a flower, grab a tarantula hawk wasp with your fingers, and if you identified it right, it's not an issue. If you identify it wrong, you get stung. So that's another one of those weird insect games that entomologists will sometimes do.
I'm picturing someone like getting admitted to the hospital, and they're like, "What happened, sir?" And you're like, "It wasn't a male. It wasn't a male." And they're just like, "I don't know what's wrong with them. Just put them in the ICU."
So I put a link in the chat to the video where we birded Stillwater, where it starts with us and all those insects in the light trap.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If you want to check that out, they can. Chloe
That
B
was fun.
said, favorite insect field guide books for beginners?
I would say the Kaufman Field Guide to Insects is probably my favorite all-around Insects of North America book. There's a lot of different books based on what you're specializing in. I'd say the Kaufman Field Guide to Butterflies is a great butterfly one. The new Peterson Field Guide to Moths of Northeastern North America and Southeastern North America are both really good ones. And then Art Evans has made a couple beetle books. He made a really good one to like Eastern North America, and he's right about to put out the Western North America one too, if I remember correctly. So I know that was a lot at once, but those are probably some of my best favorite insect books.
Is Kaufman the same bird Kaufman?
Yeah, so he has a whole field guide series. I think there's one to trees, there's ones to like different regions. There's a general insect one, and there's a butterfly one. And both of those are very good.
Awesome. Quinn said, many people have bird species that seem common to them but are rare everywhere else. In Massachusetts, we have the black duck, which are just considered common here but are the rarest duck in America. I don't think he's talking about just American black ducks. That's got to be something else, right?
I would imagine so, because I feel like American black ducks have range like all over the United States.
Yeah, and I feel like there's definitely some range-limited things like mottled duck or wild Muscovy that would be a lot rarer in North America.
Clarify your comment for us.
Or the smew.
Barbara says, what do you think about the mysterious illness affecting birds in the mid-Atlantic region?
I think I heard about this. I think that it was... Did you hear about this, Derek?
No, I haven't.
I think it was like birds were found basically disoriented and just sick, just like on the ground. And I saw an article come out that said it seems to have some random correlation with cicada emergences. And so scientists had not found any correlation between cicadas and their impact on birds, but it seems like every time this mass cicada hatch happens, birds are found ill like this, and they don't know why.
Yeah, I've heard a little about it too, and I don't know any exact sources on this, but I've heard people suggest it seems reasonable that when cicadas spend 17 years underground, they end up accumulating like a lot of pesticide residue, heavy metals, stuff like that. So then they might end up having a toxic effect on birds that gorge themselves with them. But I don't know enough about the disease and what it's been causing to really comment on that for sure. But I just thought the cicada connection was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Michael said, I'm going to find Dr. H, an executioner wasp down here in South Texas.
That would be great. Yeah, if you can just... That's the same Michael that went to the Wichitas with us.
Oh, is it? He's just Michael on the chat. Hey, Michael.
That's all he's known as. He's like
Madonna. He lives in Texas. He knows who Dr. Hoback is. So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that's him. But
well, it's good to hear from you, Michael.
If you can find an executioner wasp and keep it alive and bring it up in September, I'll make sure it stings him one way or another.
Was that the one that Coyote Peterson declared was the most painful one? Because after the bullet ant, I don't even know if it was the executioner wasp. I think it was. There was one after he did the bullet ant that he was like, that's significantly worse.
I don't know. Entomologists in general don't like Coyote Peterson for the most part. So I do not know whether that would be the executioner wasp, but I've definitely heard they have quite the sting too, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Also, going back to the Schmidt pain index, one thing I remember funny about it was everything described how it feels on his foot. So it would be like tingling at the top of your foot. And then it was like hot fire poker through the sole of your foot.
Yeah.
So I feel like he every time stung himself on the foot.
Yeah, he's very descriptive in his descriptions of the pain. So
but there is some
makes
stuff
for an entertaining read for sure.
Yeah, there's some stuff that I feel like I've been stung by that he describes it as like almost pleasant sensation. And I'm like, that hurt. Like, that was not at all a pleasant sensation, Mr. Schmidt.
Maybe pleasant in comparison to a bullet ant, but I still don't want to sting myself with a
honeybee. He probably stung himself with a bullet ant, shot himself in the foot with a gun just for comparison, and then stung himself with a honeybee. And he's like, feels great.
He's probably just a hardcore thrill seeker. He's like, I don't feel alive. I'm not getting stung by a bullet ant.
Probably. He just has a collection of them, and every time he's starting to get a little down, he gets himself in the arm, and it's just like, ah! I feel like, Alex, that would be you if you were an insect professor.
Yeah, if I weren't allergic to different things, that would be potentially. But then it becomes a whole nother game with, okay, I don't know if I'm allergic to this species yet. Class, if I start getting red and swelling up, you got to give me an EpiPen and send me to the hospital. That would be a little more disruptive.
So Rebecca Clark says, got stung by a yellow jacket once when I was a kid on my foot. She could rate that on the Schmidt pain index. That would be a perfect correlation. Quinn says he didn't mean the rarest, but one of the rarest. And then Jack was talking about other rare birds like smew, eiders. And then Michael says, yep, that's me, LOL. Sup, guys?
I feel like we should come up with a nickname for Michael, like Michael the Tarantula Hawk guy.
And he said, I'm assuming he's talking about Coyote Peterson. He says he did do a video with the executioner wasp, and it's rated the same as the bullet ant, a 4+. Didn't watch the video, but I remember the thumbnail.
Yeah. I like how he just gave up after a 4. He's like, 4+.
Yeah. Any more numbers would be too hard. Let's just keep this at 4.
He's like, I set out to make a 4-point scale, and that's it.
So I was actually really curious about some of the snakes that you found out there, like the little rattlesnakes and such. What's been your favorite snake you found while out?
Massasauga, which is another one of those. I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But yeah, those cute little small rattlesnakes, they definitely have some feistiness in them. The last one I found, we were standing over it, photographing it. It just started leaping at one of the guys because it was surrounded and it felt unsafe. And then we backed away and it slithered off into the grass. Then it came right back onto the road, right outside of our car. So we had to shoo it off the road so we wouldn't run it over.
Jeez.
they're cute. They're feisty. For non-venomous snakes, I would say speckled king snakes are probably one of my favorite ones in Oklahoma. They're just really pretty, really chill, docile snakes, and always a fun one to find.
Yeah, they're gorgeous, definitely.
I feel like around here, all I see is garter snakes and water snakes, unless I make a specific trip to try to find something else.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was in Platteville, was lots of garter snakes and lots of DK's brown snakes.
Yeah, DK's are...
The occasional water snake when you're like near
water
water.
Snakes around here, the northern water snakes get big.
Cool. Yeah,
I saw one that was like...
Yeah, I've seen a couple like 3 to 4 footers at Governor Dodge State Park, but I have not seen any huge ones. That's a cool
place, Governor Dodge State Park.
Yeah.
They're bitey too, those northern
water snakes are some of the most defensive snakes that you can grab.
I just don't even pick them up anymore because I'm like, I've seen you and you're just going to try to attack my thumb, so you can just go.
Gaybat wants to know if you've ever found any hognose snakes in Oklahoma.
Yes, I found my first hognose snake in Oklahoma on the way out to Black Mesa last weekend. So it was great. It was an eastern hognose. I was hoping it would be plains because we were in the middle of the Great Plains and I don't have that one yet, but apparently eastern hognose get that far west. But yeah, we found it. I was hoping I could get a couple pictures of it looking like a normal snake, but as soon as I stopped it from going off the path, it died. So yeah,
Aren't those guys venomous too?
Yeah, so they're kind of venomous.
They're rear fang venomous, right?
Some people react to them, but it had no interest in biting whatsoever. It just wanted to be dead.
For people that aren't super familiar with herps, you want to explain what you mean by it died?
Don't say it like that. Familiar with herps?
Yeah, so hognose snakes are very well known amongst herpers for having a really elaborate display when they feel threatened. So first, they have kind of a hood, almost like a cobra, that they'll spread out to try and look more threatening and try and scare off the predator. And if that doesn't work and you keep annoying it, it will roll on its back, wither around a bit like it's dying, and then it will release musk. So it smells like it's dead. And then it doesn't matter what you do, it'll just stay there dead. Like you can pick it up, and it'll just be flopped over, and it sits there with its mouth all the way open and its tongue draping out. They are very dramatic and always an exciting snake to find and watch.
It's basically the snake version of a possum, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, if a possum like shook its feet around and then like pooped on itself to make it even smell bad, and
I think they do that.
I don't know possums that well, so they might.
We found the one hole in his knowledge, the marsupials.
Yeah, mammals in general, you can poke a few holes there probably.
I wanna say we got an F in the chat from Michael. Nature Adventures Jack said, I once slid down a mountain in New York to catch 2 baby milk snakes. And Pizza Frenzyman says tarantula hawks were very common where I grew up. They were the only insect I would run from. What's the craziest thing you've ever done to catch insect or snake or something you were going after?
I do a lot of crazy things to catch stuff.
What's the most crazy legal thing?
Oh, that's valid. I mean, tiger beetles are often along rivers, so there's been more than enough rivers that I was like, oh, this looks shallow. I'm just going to walk across to that sandbar on the other side. And then I have regrets when the water is like almost above my chin. And I'm halfway in the river, like holding the net above my head so that it doesn't get wet. So I've definitely done that more than a couple of times. I mean, I feel like just wandering around prairies in Oklahoma at night looking for giant tiger beetles comes with its own set of risks with rattlesnakes all around. But I'm looking for rattlesnakes too, so I don't know if that really is any different than what I'd be doing anyway. So.
Well, it was kind of unnerving when we were looking around at night for I think it was actually the rattlesnakes we were looking for, but just very dark. You have a flashlight and you're kind of scanning it. You know that any moment you could stumble upon a large snake.
Yeah.
I remember when we were at Gloss Mountain, it was funny because we were on the top of the mesa and Derek and I were like looking for birds, and you turn around and you just see you like holding up your net, running towards something and like lunging at it. We're just like, well, Alex is in his element.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one nice thing about rattlesnakes is at least they usually will give you a pretty good warning before you get too close to them. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to Steven Lefts, who ordered a shirt and posted a picture of him wearing it on our Instagram. So thanks so much, Steven, for your support. I'm going to post the link to t-shirts. We also have a Let's Chat mug available as well. So I'm posting the link to that right now. You're
You
not
look good in
wearing
a
a
t-shirt.
shirt, right?
Yeah, I
You
know.
always wear it.
Oh, not today.
Mine are in the mail, so I'm waiting on
Yeah, yours are in the mail.
Mhm.
That's good. You finally can represent the brand.
it. Yeah. So,
I just know everyone that I know for Christmas is getting Badgerland birding stuff, whether they want it or not. I was going to be like, look, I got you a mug.
So, Alex, what's it like going to Oklahoma being a grad student at Oklahoma State? Because I know when we went out there, just like the campus had kind of a cool historic feel, but it kind of also feels like it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it kind of is in the middle of nowhere a little bit, which is great for doing field work. I can get out into some nice grassland habitat, just 15-minute drive from my apartment. But it's also close enough to like Tulsa and Oklahoma City that you're kind of nearby some big cities too. I've really enjoyed living down here and living in Stillwater and doing my master's degree down here. I had quite a bit of freedom to kind of do my sampling as I wanted to. And I mean, even when it was hot and 120 degrees, running around the state catching grasshoppers is definitely more than enough fun for me. So I enjoyed that. I'd say it's pretty friendly down here when I'm out walking around miles out of town to get my lifer Western grebe. People would just stop and offer me a ride. And the one I took a ride from didn't murder me. So
One for one.
Yeah, 1 for 1. We're doing great down here. But yeah, I'd say overall, I definitely like it in Oklahoma. It's pretty good down here.
Is there anything like unexpected that you were either pleasantly surprised by or negatively surprised by?
I definitely thought I could handle the heat a lot better. Like in Wisconsin, I love the middle of the summer. I
When
love
it's
going
like
out
70 degrees and you're like, oh, the heat.
Well, I mean, I was collecting out in the 90s and whatever, but the humidity down here is a bit more than I was expecting.
Let me tell you about the humidity. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Derek, you sound like such an old person.
No. It's not the heat. It's the humidity.
Yeah, Alex was like, yeah, it's hot here. And you're like, you want to hear hot, humid. I had to walk uphill both ways to find my birds.
A birder's paradise said, have you ever had any encounters with predaceous diving beetles?
Yeah. So I do a lot of walking around the lights at campus at night, not because I want to get talked to by the campus police every weekend, but because it's a great way to find nocturnal insects that are dispersing and attracted to the lights. And every spring we get like huge numbers of really big predaceous diving beetles that come in. So they'll just be flopping underneath the lights trying to figure out what's going on because this is not the pond that they intended on living in.
Does the campus police know you by name now?
I'd like to think so. I've had a couple of run-ins with them. And usually, even though when you're collecting at lights, you don't really need an insect net, typically I'll carry it with me, at least a little collapsible net, just so it's obvious what I'm doing. Usually, once they see that I have an insect net, they're just like, oh, you're clearly collecting bugs. You can go on your way. But
yeah, I feel like if I was a police officer, that would make me more suspicious. I'd be like, who's this guy planning on netting?
Yeah, I was always more worried that I'd have interesting run-ins when I was out owling at UW-Platteville, walking around campus at night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'd be down at Memorial Park, which no one goes to at night, but apparently the campus police will still drive through. Usually I just give them a wave and they go on their way, but I feel like a guy walking around at night in dark clothing with binoculars and cameras should have sent out a couple more red flags than I did.
Well, were you wearing a ski mask too?
Not most of the time. Usually
during the winter.
Yeah.
I could see that happening where you're just like out there, you're bundled up, don't even think about it, put on the ski mask, and then you're just walking around these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So Emerson says, have you ever put Dobson flies in a Ziploc bag in your hat or catch a large wasp with a Ziploc bag?
Yeah, thank you. So, and stories of Alex not collecting things the way they're supposed to be collected. So Dobson flies are these huge, kind of dragonfly-looking things with really big mandibles. So the males have really long mandibles. They look almost like elephant tusks. But because they're meant for like grabbing other males, they can't bite particularly hard. The females, on the other hand, have very strong mandibles that are used to pinch a predator that tries to eat them. The first time I found Dobson flies, I was super excited, but I was on a trip in West Virginia and did not have any collecting supplies with me. So, except a Ziploc bag. So I grabbed all 7 Dobson flies that I saw, stuck them in a Ziploc bag, but I didn't want to cause alarm to everyone who was on the bus with a bag full of giant insects. So I stuck them underneath my hat, which was a great idea for the time being, and no one noticed them. Until they eventually chewed through the Ziploc bag and then started going for the next thing, which was my head. So I ended up getting bitten by Dobson flies on my head after I collected them.
Did that happen when you were on the bus?
Yeah, while I was on the bus.
Did you keep any?
Every now and then I'd readjust, like I'd flip them over so that their heads were on the side facing the hat. But I just went with it, and I still have those Dobson flies to this day.
Huh.
So I guess in the story of crazy things I've done to collect insects, that's probably got to be in there too.
I love how all these people with inside information on your life and bug collecting.
Yeah.
They ask an interesting question, and it's just like, yeah, there's a backstory there.
Yeah, I like how the stories are like, Alex, have you ever put a tarantula in your underwear while collecting?
Don't have a story for that one yet, but
Michael says I may have to pick up some merch.
Yes, Michael, do pick up some merch. Represent. Michael, put in the chat where you're at nowadays anyway. You should, when we go back to Oklahoma, you should make a revisit.
Kaden wants to know what type of nighthawks you get.
Common. Maybe you'd have like a stray lesser in the southwest part of the state or in the panhandle every now and then, but around Stillwater, you just kind of assume everything's common. We do get common four-wills in the panhandle, though, and I did get one of those out there. And we have both whippoorwills and Chuck-Will's widows kind of around the eastern half of the state. So,
Bill says hi from South Portland, Maine.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
That's cool. This meeting is going to run out in a minute and 29 seconds, so I sent you guys another Zoom link. So
awesome.
We're going to make the transition in a little bit here. And I don't know how busy you are tonight, Alex, but I figure we'll just kind of go until we run out of questions here.
I got nothing else going on.
Or embarrassing stories from your family and friends that decided to join.
Hopefully Emerson
don't ask
goes
for
on
that.
the
I'm
next
sure
one.
they can find more.
All right, well, I'm going to end this one, and I'll see you guys in the new one. Sound good?
All right. See you soon.
All right, new Zoom meeting. This will probably be the last one. So Michael says he's living in Austin. There's actually a bird observatory here, so y'all could always come down and we could go do that. That sounds awesome. Plan a South Texas trip. How do you like living in Austin? I heard the city is really cool down there. There's a lot of fun stuff to do. Ryan's entering here. Hey.
Oh, it's quicker on the draw than Alex is.
True.
How many people are tuned in?
We got 26 right now.
Already for this one?
I mean, on the live, it just they're not new lives. The live is just
Oh, really?
New Zoom meetings, yeah.
Interesting. So what do they do for those 10 seconds we're not on?
They talk to me because I'm the quickest on the draw.
Oh, I see.
So Michael said he's living in Austin now.
Oh,
Yep.
nice.
So he
I
was
always
saying
forget which cities in Texas we went to, but I think we were near Austin, weren't we?
we were. So he was saying we could come down and go to like there's a bird observatory down there, or we do South Texas. That'd be really fun.
South Texas, get the band back together.
Jack said if you happen to come to New Jersey with Alex, we could do some birding. I think he was talking to Emerson. They were talking about like the Northeast and everything. Caden says, last weekend I was able to photograph Virginia rails for over 30 minutes. Michael said Austin's great, not liking the traffic, but it's great.
I did hear Austin traffic is really bad, but a lot of people I've heard love living in Texas. But it can't be worse than like Chicago traffic, right?
I wouldn't think so.
Chicago
I
traffic.
think it's a lot smaller than Chicago, so shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, Chicago traffic is bad.
So Alex, do you have plans for after you're done with your PhD stuff, where you'd like to go?
Probably like a postdoc somewhere before I get a professor job. I know Gary really wants to do one in Germany, which would definitely be cool to kind of live out of the country for like a year or so. See whatever weird European birds I can over there. I'd really like to see a hoopoe. Hoopos are, again, don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but hoopos are so cool looking. And then, yeah, just more or less wherever I can get a job as a professor somewhere. I mean, you kind of just take it where you can get it with that. But I'd love to be somewhere like Pacific Northwest maybe, or someplace that's new for me.
So definitely want to keep traveling then.
Yeah. Oh, one moment. Potato just came.
Potato is Alex's dog.
Oh, I thought he was like, I dropped some potatoes.
Oh, here. One moment, I'll introduce Potato.
Is it just me or did Alex not have a dog last time we were there?
No, he did. I think
He did?
I think so.
It wasn't in the apartment.
Yeah, there he is.
So Potato is Carrie's dog. She's just hanging out here for the evening.
Got it. That makes sense.
Say hi to everyone, Potato.
I was
She likes
telling
birding too. We've taken her to Gloss Mountains. We've taken her all over Oklahoma.
Wow, she really is a potato.
I was commenting on Alex's oven bird shirt earlier before you got
Why is it not a Badgerland birding shirt?
It's a pretty cool
I don't
shirt.
have one yet.
All right, well, this will be our last Zoom session we do with Alex, to make sure if you guys have any questions about, being a grad student, living in Oklahoma, the differences between states, anything like that. I guess herps, insects, really any of his specialties. Not marsupials, but anything else.
Definitely not marsupials.
Oh, apparently there's a limpkin at Channel Lakes State Park in Lake County, Illinois. Those limpkin are getting everywhere.
Yeah,
Oh, that's weird.
that wood stork too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there was a wood stork in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, I always hate when you get reports that are like, not chaseable. Or the wood stork, I think, was only there for like 30 minutes, so you couldn't have gotten it anyway. But like, yeah, this was staying around here for 2 weeks. Now it's gone, so we're reporting it. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, just don't even report it then.
So is there still a place in Oklahoma that you want to go that you haven't been to yet?
I definitely like to explore the southeast a little bit more. Red Slough Wildlife Management Area especially is that big like swamp marsh area kind of in the southeast corner of the state.
Oh yeah,
and
you're telling us about that.
Yeah, I've been through there once and spent like an hour there sampling grasshoppers, but I didn't get to see any of the cool birds there. There's breeding purple gallinules, there's wood storks, there's roseate spoonbills. It's basically like a marsh anywhere in the southeast, like around Florida or whatnot. But I didn't get any of those weird specialty birds, except white ibis were really common there. So I got to see quite a few of those.
Have you ever been down to like South Carolina?
I have not. I've been to Florida, but I haven't really been to many of the places in between Wisconsin and Florida.
Oh, gotcha. I feel like you'd enjoy South Carolina because I go there pretty much annually, go to Hilton Head. and there's all sorts of the white ibis. Near there's red cockaded woodpeckers.
Oh,
the
that's a
coastal
nice
stuff.
one.
Yeah, do you get those in that area down in Oklahoma?
Yeah, we actually have a really little area that has red cockaded woodpeckers, Bachman sparrow, brown-headed nuthatch, a bunch of
That's
those.
so interesting.
Yeah, a bunch of those rare southeastern things just barely make it into Oklahoma, but I've seen those in Florida and part of Alabama. So
yeah, I like the brown-headed nuthatches. Those are really funny.
With their little rubber ducky squeaky call.
Yeah,
cool.
They're so funny. Nuthatches are probably one of my favorite bird species just because they're such weirdos.
Yeah.
All right, so Carrie said, what has been your favorite part of grad school at OSU so far? In parentheses, this is not a trick question.
Well,
it's Carrie. She made it.
Yeah, I suppose I should shout out Carrie.
It's not a trick question, though, so you're allowed to say anything you want. So if it's the grasshoppers, that you're allowed to say that.
I think Carrie is a couple notches above the grasshoppers, as long as Dr. Holbeck isn't on here.
But what about the tiger beetles?
Oh, that gets a little bit closer.
You already mentioned the moths on the stream, so those have got to be up there.
Yeah. Meeting Carrie was great. We started working on our projects at the exact same time. We were in the same lab. We bonded over having to deal with fermented rats for burying beetle sampling. So that kind of trauma will bond you together pretty quick.
Did it start with so those rats, huh?
More or less. Actually, it started. So we were both staying in a hotel in O'Neill, Nebraska, which you think Oklahoma is the middle of nowhere. O'Neill is the absolute middle of nowhere. There's nothing out there.
Corn, probably.
Corn and some grasslands with some rare beetles on it. So we were chatting, getting to know each other, and this guy shows up who we'll be working with for the trip. And he's a professor that I've been Facebook friends with for a while. And he was like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, Alex. Talks to me for a good 5 minutes without acknowledging Carrie, and then turns to her and is like, are you Alex's sister? Nope.
You should have just been yes.
Yeah, well, he just showed up. He came out with us to Black Mesa, and when he saw Carrie for the first time, I was like, and here's my sister, Carrie Pratt. He was like, yeah, I don't think she can pull that off. And I was like, you thought so the first time you met us.
That's funny. Yeah, I feel like after he engaged you in conversation for 5 minutes, he had to take a wild stab at it. And I guess, what's more offensive, it actually being your sister and be like, so you two in love?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I think he went for the safe choice. I don't know if we've ever
officially said that, you and Carrie's your girlfriend for people that
Yeah. Carrie's my girlfriend. That's her dog. She is chilling in the living room listening to this whole thing and laughing periodically at the dumb things I say. But yeah, she's also an entomology student. She works with the endangered American burying beetle, which is not quite as cool as grasshoppers. I'll get some feedback on that one pretty soon. But they're these big endangered beetles that bury dead animals like rats, for instance, and then rear their larvae on them. And she's looking at their microbiome to see if there's any bacteria that are antibacterial to bad bacteria that we could use for antibiotics in the future. So she did her master's, she completed it, and now she's going to do her PhD in the microbiology department at Oklahoma State.
Awesome.
Alex, if you want to buy her a treat or something, we have these great mugs and T-shirts.
Oh, okay. Well, don't let her hear that, and maybe for Christmas or something, I can get her a Badgerland birding T-shirt or mug or something.
Little Green Hair 91 wants to know if you do any work with ticks.
Nope, I do not like ticks pretty strongly. My mom absolutely hates ticks, so I was very against them growing up. I mostly stick to insects, so even spiders are a little outside my realm of expertise. I don't know them super well. But actually, Carrie did a bunch of Lyme disease research in her undergrad. So she was detecting these teeny little larval ticks and like killing mice to see if they had Lyme disease after like they were experimented on and all sorts of things. So
that sounds intense.
Alex, a trivia question for you. What animal that lives in North America eats a lot of ticks?
Possums.
Oh, he has some marsupial knowledge after all.
And they're also immune to Lyme disease. So
hey, that's another one.
Yeah.
Aren't possums immune to a lot of different things?
Yeah. One cool thing, too, is we don't have a whole lot of Lyme disease in Oklahoma because our larval ticks will use lizards as their hosts instead of rodents. And Lyme disease doesn't do well in reptiles. So lizards are just kind of a dead-end host for ticks, for Lyme disease here. So even though we have deer ticks, we don't really have Lyme disease in large amounts around Oklahoma compared to up where you guys are in Lyme disease central in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're actually the Lyme disease state.
Yeah, that's Wisconsin's motto.
Yeah, you guys are the Sooner state. We're the Lyme disease state.
Right. We had a question. Well, first of all, Carrie mentioned in the chat. She says, "I'm a birder too," with an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Ooh, dropping hints, Alex.
And she says, "I definitely want a shirt," with an exclamation point.
Hey,
awesome.
That's what we have to do is just pressure people into getting their birding sim and others merch.
And then Emerson says, "Carrie, I'll make sure to remind him about getting a shirt before Christmas comes around." So you got a whole family thing going on now.
Yep. Thanks, Em.
Alex, we did want you to start your own channel though, called like Alex's Insects.
Well, I had a Facebook page that was Alex's Insects for a little while because I didn't want to spam all my friends with insect stuff on Facebook. And then I decided if you're friends with me on Facebook, you can either just deal with my insects or not be friends with me on Facebook.
Yeah.
So now I just post everything to my personal page. But Alex's Insects is still up there if you want to see the insects that high school Alex caught. Pictures are there.
It's just a hat with a bunch of bugs and stuff.
You just get like a flood of thousands of new people.
What?
Alex's Insects just takes off after this. There's like thousands of new people trying to add you.
Yeah.
A Birder's Paradise said, "Where's the best place to see whooping cranes?" I mean, I think for us it's probably Horicon, but there's also some
Necedah is a very popular place.
I've got them pretty reliably at Necedah, so I would say probably Necedah or Horicon for FIU guys.
Yeah, we lucked out this year.
Necedah? I haven't really explored that too much.
There's a big observation tower kind of right near the main ranger station visitor center thing there. And I've seen them a couple of times from there. Really good for seeing like trumpeter swans and the white pelicans and all sorts of things from up there. So go up there, bring a scope with you, and hope for the best would be my advice.
And then we also have the International Crane Foundation in Wisconsin, too, if you want. I believe they have all the cranes that exist in the world, so that's a great place to go to.
They do. Also, the Milwaukee County Zoo has a pair of whooping cranes, which obviously isn't countable.
But you can't see them right now.
I think they're having chicks, I think.
I think so.
I guess. Derek and I got lucky this year, and we went to Horicon, and we just, like, one of the first things we saw was a whooping crane just flying. And at first we just saw the white bird, and we were like, is that a swan? And I was like, I think that's a whooping crane. It was, like, literally the first place we went, the first thing we saw.
Yeah, when I first started being a birder, I had already been a nature guy for, like, a long time. So I went through all my old pictures of, like, various trips and whatnot to see what kind of birds I already had on my life list, which some people agree with doing it that way. Some people don't. It's my list. I saw them. It counts.
You have to start over from the moment you decided you were a birder.
Some people do that. I don't know why. But anyway, going back and looking through Horicon pictures, I have a picture from when I was probably like 10 years old at Horicon of just 5 whooping cranes flying over. So it was my camera. I know I took it. I have no memory of seeing the whooping cranes there and realizing that they were a big deal. But yeah, I've since seen them. So if anyone wants to get on my case about counting that, even if I don't remember it, I've seen them at Horicon now a few times. I've seen them at Necedah. So
you get a letter from the eBird admin, like, so you're telling me that report from 10 years ago may not be accurate.
Yeah, no, it's accurate. I just don't remember seeing them.
the first time Derek and I went to HorrorCon, we were still pretty novice birders. And so like the whooping crane was like a holy grail type bird for us at the time. And when we pulled up to one of the roads, we saw all of these white birds with black wingtips flying. And we're like, oh, is that them? That might be them. And then pelicans.
Yeah. Just a whole flock of like all the world's population of whooping cranes just gliding over HorrorCon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the first time we went to HorrorCon, it was to look for a black-bellied whistling duck that we never saw, but we were driving down one of the roads, and an American bittern just walked out in front of us. And we were like,
just stood there.
We were like, oh, that must be an American bittern, and that's the best look I've ever gotten at one.
We're like, this place is great.
Never again.
That's right up there with like rails showing up at like shopping centers and
Wrigley Field
and all the weird places that rails show up.
Derek, I thought you've never seen a bittern.
Dude, Jack said I hate when I don't check the reports for a while, and then I'm shocked about what I could have gotten. Got to be on those reports. Caden wants to know which one of us started birding first.
I think it was like actually right at the same time for Derek and I, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, me and you did.
Alex, yeah, because we watched the big year.
I would have started 2016, 2017.
Okay. Yeah, so that's about the time we started our channel, I think. So I think we were like 2014. So when
I remember Alex just started posting stuff all the time in the bird groups, like incessantly, just like daily, like six things from Alex.
I was starting out birding by myself at Platteville, so I definitely wasn't confident yet in what I was seeing. So every single time I got a picture of something, I was like, okay, I think this is like a Blackburnian warbler. Can you confirm that this is the most distinctive bird in North America?
But then it transitioned from like common stuff to like, I just found this white-eyed vireo, and he would be like the first person to find it, and then he'd be like, yeah, I just found these ibises. So he like morphed from being a beginner to all of a sudden finding rare stuff. And I was like, why does that have to be out in the western part of the state?
Yeah, a little far away from you guys, but you guys find enough rare stuff in your half of the state that I can't really chase either. So,
how did we end up going on that same trip with Rob and Bill together? I think that Bill was like organizing, and he's just like, yeah, that Alex Harman guy is coming too.
Yeah, I think he was posting about doing a Saxon bog trip soon, and I think I had been in touch with you guys because I had like asked about where to look for the long-eared owls, because you guys seem like the most approachable folks in the birding group. I don't know. And I don't know. I think I just kind of asked him, hey, do you got any extra seats on that trip to Saxon Bog? And he was like, well, let me check with the group and see. And you guys gave me the A-OK to come with. And he was like, yeah, sure, you can come with. And he let me in the Saxon Bog Facebook group. And now you haven't been able to get rid of me.
I feel like that was such a fun trip.
I was just thinking that you were only in the Oklahoma videos, but you're in the Saxon. Just are you in all three or just two of them?
I think I should be in all three. The only thing is Rob and I left early, so we didn't get the Boreal Chickadees. So if you have one that's just like up near Isabella, it might not be in it.
It's the two of them.
Yeah, I think
and then didn't you guys find like red crossbills or something? You found... Yeah.
Yeah, we got both red and white-winged crossbills on the way back through northern Wisconsin.
Yeah,
that was actually a really epic Saxon bog trip. I think we got pretty much everything that we wanted.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I took a couple more years to get Boreal Chickadee after that, but that's pretty much the only thing that I missed.
So we saw Boreal Chickadees last year when we were in Minnesota. We go camping in the Boundary Waters. And every year we're up there, I hear the raspy call. I'm like, is it really accurate that there's this many Boreal Chickadees? Because like you'll just be paddling around and you'll hear it. You're like, is that Boreal Chickadees? And last year, like flock of them came through our campsite. So it was just like, yeah, they just came right through. You still couldn't really get a good look at them because they were so elusive. But I was like, I guess there are just a lot of Boreal Chickadees up in that part of the country.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Barbara Cole says South Carolina is my home state, and it's a great place for both birds and insects. There's a lot of biodiversity for a small state, which I think we can agree with for that. Jack says my friend Andrew started just after there were 3 northern lapwings in New Jersey 2014. That'd be cool. bird to see.
Well, did he miss it then?
That's oof to start just after that, though.
I don't know.
I know when I started actively birding, it was right after that there had been that long-stinging purple gallinule in like the Boston area.
Oh, yeah.
So I was in the Facebook group. I saw all the posts about it. And by the time I had a free weekend, that I was like, maybe I should chase this rare bird to see it because it looks really cool. It had taken off.
One thing that gets me still is reading some reports that people post from like 20 or 30 years ago where there's all this crazy stuff that was in the state and now it's just not there anymore. Like the biodiversity seems like it was much greater. Because I remember there was this one post that was like the biggest day ever in state history where they found like high 200s or something like that. And they're just like, yeah, I went to my usual tri-colored heron spot. Found 5 little blue herons in the usual places, like king rails in 6 different spots. And I was just like, what that must have been like for people to be able to go see some of that stuff.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy for sure. A Birder's Paradise said, how do you tell the difference between the calls of boreal chickadees and mountain chickadees?
I've never had to do that before.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know how much the ranges actually overlap, but as far as boreal chickadees versus like black-capped chickadees, the boreal is definitely like a raspier sounding call. Almost more.
I think the mountains are a little raspier too, though.
They might be. I mean, the calls would be tough if they're that similar, but the appearance is definitely different between boreal chickadee and mountain chickadee.
Yeah, I would have to listen to both the mountain and boreal. I've never been in a situation where the ranges were overlapping where I was, so I've never done it before.
Yeah, that's this is a very specific one. I wonder if that was like a specific circumstance.
Like today, they were out there and they were like, all these chickadees, but which species?
It can definitely be tough. And well, speaking of big days, I remember I think when we started to do like in 2014 while we were counting how many species we saw the first time, I remember we had some number and then people went out to do a big day and it was higher than our total for the whole year. And I was like, that's really discouraging.
Yeah. I think we were in like the high 100s and somebody went out and got like 198 and we were like, oh.
Yeah,
they were like, kind of like, they were like a modest 198 species and it was just like, ooh.
Yeah, there's a professor in Stillwater who regularly gets like 90, because you know how eBird shows like what percentage of total birds seen in a region you get a year. He regularly gets like in the mid to high 90% of birds seen in Payne County every year. And like I'll be going and his, like by February or March, his year list will be the same as my life list for Payne County. He's insane, but he is a great birder.
Birder's Paradise said, yeah, they're raspy too, so must be similar call. Jack said, in some parts of New Jersey, Carolina, chickadees overweigh black-capped. I'm assuming he means overlap, but overweigh is kind of a funnier way of putting it.
They do sound different. It's really hard to tell them apart. I think there's some really subtle differences.
I know Leslie the Bird Nerd put out a video telling the difference between the twos, and, you know, I'm sure that's...
I'm glad I don't live in a place where they overlap.
Yeah, those are tough to tell apart, for sure. Final questions from you guys for Alex. Thanks again so much for joining us, Alex. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Do you have any questions for our viewers, for them to write in the chat?
How dare you?
Well, putting me on the spot, but I'll just say, like, what is your favorite insect? Or I always like the nemesis bird stories. So if you got a good nemesis bird story or you have a specific one you're like really looking for right now, put that in the group chat.
I would really like to know adventures with Jack's nemesis bird.
So we got favorite insect and then nemesis bird.
Yeah.
Derek, what's your favorite insect?
Ooh, probably maybe the zebra swallowtail.
I was going to say tiger swallowtail.
All the swallowtails are good. You can't really go wrong.
Yeah, Alex, our mom has raised different species of caterpillars ever since we were really little. So we would like go out looking for different caterpillar species and try to find all the like kind of tougher to find ones. And whenever we'd find a tiger swallowtail, we would just get really excited about it.
Yeah, I love doing that too. I have a bunch of pupae from some.
It's just right on your desk. Like, here it is.
Yeah, you're on my insect desk right now. So
Okay.
this computer is surrounded by like collecting supplies and insect pins and whatnot.
Hats.
Yeah, but I found a whole
That's my
bunch.
insect hat.
I found a whole bunch of venomous, stinging buck moth caterpillars.
Oh yeah.
And I've gotten most of them to pupation. So hopefully then this August or September, they'll come out and I'll have a whole bunch of cool buck moths that are found in Southwest Oklahoma.
Are those the ones? I can't remember which one it is, but it looks like a little fuzzy. It's just really fuzzy, but it's poisonous or venomous.
So yeah, that's a puss
It looks kind of like a slug. What is it?
Yeah, that's a puss moth.
Yes, that's it.
Also known as a flannel moth. These are like longer. They get a good like 3 inches in length, and they're just covered in branched spines. So you'd look at it and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to touch that."
Yeah, we had one of the flannel moths once.
Yeah, unless you're me, and then you're like, "Oh, I need to touch this carefully," and then I accidentally touch it, and I get a little bit of a rash from it, but it happens.
You're like, I need to see what this feels like on my foot.
I have not done that yet.
All right, we got some things coming in. Jack says favorite insect is a rainbow scarab.
Those are nice. Yeah, it's a big dung beetle.
Like, that's a nice bug.
That comes out of its head, and it's like metallic green and red.
Emerson says pileated woodpecker, frowny, mad face.
Okay, so real quick story behind that. Em and I, whenever we go birding, even at places that reliably have pileated woodpeckers like Governor Dodge, without fail, we do not see one. We will hear them every single time we go out, but it took probably their 7th or 8th time of hearing a pileated woodpecker before we actually saw one. And even now, like, we'll be driving down a road, I'll see a pileated woodpecker fly over, I'll point it out, and we'll be taking a nap or something. Just as fate has it, Em is not meant to see pileated woodpeckers.
Em still hasn't seen one? Or Em finally did? Oh, one, okay.
One at Governor Dodge.
They're the kind of bird where you can't really go out looking for them. They find you.
They just have to find you.
Yeah, they find you. And you can see them in random places when you're not looking. But if you ever see them up close, they're so big compared to everything else.
That was one of my favorite birds right when I started birding, is I really wanted to find a pileated woodpecker. And he eventually did at the Madison Arboretum, which is another great birding spot.
Next up, ivory billed.
Next up, Jack says nemesis bird is brown booby. Missed it twice this year. Those are tough. Nick Parlberg says butterfly. Looking for ringneck pheasant, yellow legs. The other birds I need to find are more winter birds. Sammy Rome is here from our World.
Hey, Sammy, how's it going?
Video. Hey, Sammy.
Derek, remember when Sammy found that cerulean warbler?
I do. I remember. Is that in the video, or I think one of us?
Yeah.
Sammy, you sick son of a gun.
I think that was you.
Yeah, that was an awesome find. He says his nemesis bird would probably be blue grosbeak.
So you didn't get that one this year, Sammy? There was one at Spirit Lake, and then there was one at Spring Green.
Are they gone now? Or are they still there?
I do not know.
Birder's Paradise, favorite insect, orange tip butterfly or ladybug? Ethan Ring, nemesis bird is the American bittern. Can never find them, or the black-crowned night heron, can never find them either. Chloe B says butterflies, bumblebees, woolly bears. Alice Scott says I would love to see a painted bunting. I really like praying mantises and stick insects. And Sammy says, hey guys.
I feel like we should start telling people that put their nemesis bird down places to go get them.
Well, it depends what state they're in. Like, I can tell you.
Yeah, because if they really want to see a black-crowned night heron and they come here in, like, April, I can guarantee it.
You better be careful there with your guarantee, Joe Namath.
No, I know a guy.
What do you think about those insects, Alex? Good choices?
Oh, yeah. I love the orange tip butterflies. That was one that I was very excited to see when I moved down to Oklahoma.
Sammy says
so do you rear a lot of them?
Spirit Lake is still there, but he hasn't had time to go.
Okay. Do you rear a lot of insects, Alex, or do you mostly just collect them?
I mostly collect them. Caterpillars you can't really collect very well, so I usually rear any cool caterpillars I find. But yeah, mostly collecting.
Do you have your huge collection with you? It's all in like shelves, right? We can't really take a look.
Yeah, so, okay. This cabinet right here houses my insects that I have with me. Most of mine are still back in Wisconsin, but then the cabinet opens up and then all of them are stored in drawers like this. So this is like one of my tiger beetle boxes. They're sorted by what species they are. And yeah.
That's crazy.
I think when I finally receive my tarantula hawk wasp, I'm going to have to do an unboxing.
Sure. I'll throw in a couple surprises in there too, so then it's a more exciting unboxing video.
It's going to be a live tarantula hawk wasp.
Yeah, that's the surprise. I'm going to treat it like a sports card unboxing. I'm going to be like, This is a rare one. That's a parallel card.
Jack wants
I can even like write little notes on like which ones are rare, where they're found, like cool powers that they have, stuff like that.
Like Jack, a story behind. You're like, this is one I jumped in the water to get.
Yeah.
Jack wants to know if any of us have gone night birding, and he says he goes out once a week.
Night birding once a week?
Mm-hmm.
I don't go out that often, but we go like looking for woodcocks and stuff.
Yeah, I've done like a moderate amount of owling, but I've never done any of like the flight calls or any of that stuff that some folks do.
Did you guys hear about, there was that one tower where they were recording bird calls, and it was on a border of two states, and one of them was Kentucky. I don't remember the other one, maybe Tennessee or something. And they was recording all these crazy bird calls at night that they like didn't have for state records yet. So then they were having a debate like which state they should go to, and each state's birders didn't want them. So they would be like, we do not want that record because it shows up as something that was there that you didn't get. So like, no, the other state should have them. And it was like a debate going on.
Birders Paradise said Virginia rail is nemesis bird. Was Wilson snipe for a while. Stephen Shepard once says, Alex, what's your favorite kind of grasshopper from Oklahoma?
Oh, favorite one from Oklahoma would probably be the black-winged grasshopper, Trimeratropus melanoptera. So it's a band-winged grasshopper, so it's kind of like dull brown on the top. But then where most grasshoppers have like kind of yellow hind wings and then a black stripe, most of its close relatives, this one just has an almost entirely black hind wing, and it looks really striking when it flies. Its abdomen is bright red on the top. It's just overall a really cool grasshopper.
Awesome. Michael says favorite insect would be the giant stag beetle.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
And then Chloe says, I see a variety of owls here, but never seem to be able to find barn owls. I feel that.
Do you have them down by you, Derek?
We have them, not as much in the southeast, more in the southwest. But I was actually doing a black rail survey. We didn't find any black rails because they got listed on like the endangered species list as like one of the categories. So now they need special permits to like research them. So we were doing a black rail survey, but we couldn't do it in a place where they knew there were black rails.
Huh.
So we had to do it somewhere else. So we didn't find any. And Eric Johnson from Audubon, Louisiana, thought he heard a barn owl once, and then someone may have seen something swooping down, but like it wasn't anything definite. So it's one of those things where you feel like it's like right there, but you just can't confirm it.
It was actually just someone screaming.
Yeah, I mean, sounds similar. They are pretty elusive. All right, final questions in the chat for Alex. We'll probably do one or two more before we call it a day here.
Alex, did you expect to be doing a 2.5-hour podcast?
No, I definitely did not, but I'll take it. It's been fun. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah,
it's been great to see you again. And this just getting me excited to go on our United States round trip birding adventure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we can just get all the birds in one year, and then we don't need to worry about our nemesis again.
I think there was some guy who got a really high big year total just by living in like somewhere in New England area and then Arizona. Like he lived in New England but went to school in Arizona, and he got like some huge total just in those two places. We could just do one big loop in spring and then call it a year.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you do well enough in spring, you can hit a pretty big total and not need to do much the rest of the year.
Yeah. Alex, would you ever devote a good amount of your time to actually doing like some sort of big year?
I feel like I would get too distracted to do a bird big year. Insects definitely kind of remain my priority, but if someone ever had some way to fund a tiger beetle big year, you could probably talk me into it.
That sounds cool.
I think
I know a
Rob,
few people have done butterfly ones, and they've had some good success with those. Tiger beetles are rising in popularity. They're nowhere near butterflies yet, but give it a couple decades and we'll see.
I think Rob did something like that, but it was just a competition between him and one of his friends from Georgia. So they did like an any animal big year, like find any species of anything that you want to. Here's a question for you. Are you concerned at all if tiger beetles rise in popularity that we'll see more of these species go potentially extinct? Because collecting insects is a little different than birding because you actually a lot of times take the insect. Is that a concern for you if it rises in popularity?
So definitely if collecting would really rise in popularity, that would be a concern for a lot of the ones that live in really small populations, even though collecting has been shown not to really cause any effect in insect populations because they're really good at filling the niche that they have. It definitely could be a concern. What's becoming a big thing right now is tiger beetle photography. So collecting isn't really rising in popularity, and it probably, honestly, really won't that much. I mean, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of supplies that you just need to keep on buying. It's an expensive and time-consuming hobby, which people could say birding is too, or any sort of photography. But we've recently seen a pretty good number of amateur naturalists trying to photograph tiger beetles, and they're amazingly challenging photography subjects because they're wary, they're tiny, and they never really stop moving, a lot of them. So I'm guessing that if tiger beetles become more popular, it'll kind of end up going the butterflying route rather than staying the collecting route. Obviously, scientists like me will still keep on collecting because that data is important. But I'm guessing for the general public, watching them or photographing them is a lot easier.
Except for that one tiny species we found at in Oklahoma where I took a picture of it and then I looked back at the picture. I was like, well, got a picture of the dirt.
Yeah. Let me tell you, any tiger beetle species, when you photograph it, about half your pictures are going to be pictures of where it used to be. So,
all right,
that's
Alex, final question here. Since all of us kind of started birding when we were older, what's some advice you have for people who are just starting to get into it?
I would say get involved in like the Facebook groups and ideally if you could find people in person who will help mentor you. Having people who will like help guide you, help you identify things, that definitely has been what's gotten me into birding the most, and just interacting with other birders is really a big part of what keeps it exciting and keeps me in it too. So the birds are great, the birders are just as great is what I would say for the most part.
Awesome.
For the most part.
All right, well, that is going to end it for us. Well, thanks again so much for joining us, Alex. Viewers, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share, and we'll see you on the next video.
All righty. Have a good night.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to end the live here. And the